Hey, what is up guys? It's your boy Speed here, and today we are back with 7.83. Let's get into 3 builds for each and every role, going from the safe lane all the way to support, because let's be real, who cares about position 5s? I mean, literally, in my last rank game in Immortal Draft, like, people mark their role, and there can be like 8 of the same role. There was 9 carries in the lobby. Like, what in the what? Either way, let's get into 3 builds for each role. I'm not claiming that these are the best heroes. However, I did specifically try to pick heroes that I thought were either the best or close to the best. And I'll touch on that more when I cover them. So let's start with the safe lane and get into it. All right, first off is DK Red version, or Fire Dragon. Now, I didn't really think much of it when I initially saw it in the patch, but let me tell you, this facet is crazier than it was before, which is really wild because it was already really good. But yeah, all you carry players, you're gonna have to keep playing Dragonite if you already were. Why? Well, first off, his E gives bonus damage. That bonus damage, a little bit oddly, works on denies. So you get essentially 10 damage at level 1 if you want it. Can also just take a stun or take your Q, both are completely fine. But yeah, at level 3 you can have bonus 20 damage on your auto attacks, and it works on denies. So your laning stage, if the enemy cannot directly kill you, is just absurd. You can easily deny creeps as you have a bonus 20 to 30 damage, depending on your level, and you reduce the enemy's damage by 33%. But it goes way further than that. So now he does not have cleave as a passive. He only has splash damage in his ult. So you actually do have to spam your ulti off cooldown. That's something you need to keep in mind. But also his E gives bonus AoE. You might be saying, why in the world would I need bonus AoE on Dragonite? Well, in the Fire Dragon form, if you were in your ulti, if you were a dragon, your stun is an AoE. So it counts for that, it counts for your Q, and it counts for the splash damage on your auto attacks. And you'd be surprised how big it actually gets. If you don't understand, basically the E gives you 100 AoE bonus, but your 25 talent amps that, but more simply, your ulti amps it by a percentage as well. And it's a big percent, I think it's up to 50%, 20% at level 1 or 30%. It's a lot. And so your splash AoE can get massive. Your stun AoE, your Q AoE become huge. So how do I recommend building this hero? Basically, you want to max your E, gives you that damage, gives you that deny potential. So 1-1-4, you should have a point in the Q and a point in the W generally. You don't have to take both by level 2, but some people will. And then in terms of items, I think it's just honestly standard DK items. I actually think people are trying to overcorrect on this hero. For instance, people are going like Mjolnir because you don't have cleave on your E and you can't farm when your ulti's down. But the reality is this Maelstrom just doesn't really make you farm that fast on this hero. You shouldn't look at Dragonite as some like magic damage hero now because he has magic damage on his E in the autos. Don't look at it that way. He's still a physical damage right clicker. Your ulti still gives you 100 damage at level 18 and 20 damage at level 6. So just buy Mask of Madness and buy Armlet, just same as before. Treads, well, Wand, Bracer, Treads, Armlet, Mask of Madness, and then if it's a good Sanjin Yasha game, Sanjin Yasha. If it's a better BKB game, BKB. You can still just go then for Silver Edge or Daedalus after and become a scaling right-click menace. Really nothing's changed, but it's actually better than before. Also, by the way, before we get into the next build, I do want to mention over on the website, I'm putting out a lot of 7.83 content. I'm updating it. I just made 2 videos today covering some of the pro games that are going on and how the meta is developing in 7.83, so you guys can stay on top of it, how the map is changing, how the game is changing, how heroes are changing, how drafts are developing. I did a draft analysis and a match analysis. So if you guys are interested in that type of thing, go sign up to the Game League website, especially for this patch. I pump out content for the website year round, but especially around patches, I go quite nuts to really get you guys going and give people the edge. Because, you know, YouTube is a lot more like general, the website is a lot more specific. It's going to actually help you get to the next level. Sign up down below and I'll see you guys there. Next up, let's talk about Chaos Knight. So they actually changed a lot about Chaos Knight. They changed the stun cast range, they gave him a new facet, and really what I mainly want to talk about here today is the new facet. So the new facet is called Fundamental Foraging, and essentially what you need to know about it is that it allows you to get the tier above you for that neutral item for the tier below. So minute 5, you can get Iron Talon, which is really funny because in the safe lane, there's an ancient camp behind you. So if you manage to get this, you can just farm a big ancient camp at minute 5. Like, I'm not kidding. Like that's a real thing that can pretty consistently happen. Like this is a real good strategy for a Chaos Knight. And there's a lot of examples of this. At minute, I believe 35, you can get a tier 5 neutral item. I mean, that's just broken. So this hero right then and there is just quite incredible. In terms of item builds, I'm looking at Pro Tracker. Nothing's really changed. I would say it's going to be along the lines of a wand. You need wand on this hero, raindrops, a bracer for the laning stage, treads, and armlet. After armlet, you have a couple of different avenues. You can go Sanjin, one of the best items in the game, certainly good on Chaos Knight, or you can go for something like an Orchid and go for more of a solo kill route. After Orchid, going back for the Sanjin or going for a BKB. But yeah, it mainly comes down, like, what's different about this hero is the stun cast range is a lot better, which actually makes a big deal. I've seen it in game. It really is noticeable. And then this facet, just giving you these really crazy timings, this really crazy tempo. It's quite good. All right, the third hero is Lifestealer. Now, Lifestealer is going to be reasonably boring to talk about, so I'm going to kind of speed through it. Now, honestly, I didn't really think that Lifestealer would become this top meta carry of the patch, but it arguably might be the best. They gave him new facets. It seems like Flesh Feast is the way to go, so I'll talk about that one. Feast max HP per hero kill is increased, so when you get hero kills, you get more HP. And it's kind of a lot. It's 25, 35, 45, 55. It scales kind of a lot. If you get a lot of kills in this hero, you just become stupid tanky. Almost impossible to burst, especially with your S and Y timing. But I would say actually, in my opinion, more importantly, is the fact that open wounds cooldown is refreshed if a unit dies while afflicted by open wounds. And keep in mind, open wounds naturally spreads, right? So if the person who you open wounds takes damage, it spreads. That's just how the ability works. And so it's actually really likely for this to happen, where someone in a team fight, someone dies with W on them. And as a result, it's going to refresh. And this ability is just great. It's actually one of Dota's better abilities, and most people don't even know how it works. Lifestealer rends an enemy unit, right? So you slow them, and then you allow allies to regain health for a percentage of the damage they dealt. It works on teammates. That's what a lot of people don't know. So if you pick, let's say, Lifestealer with Leshrac, if Leshrac is all in nuking someone, he will heal like crazy from the W, because it's 50% damage to healing. It's a crazy number. So really, open wounds is one of Dota's better scaling abilities. And so being able to just refresh it and have it constantly going is really, really good. And a lot of players don't realize how good it actually is. So yeah, seems like this facet is better than people realize. It also just kind of makes you scale better with the max HP per hero kill. And so yeah, it seems like Lifestealer is maybe the best carry, because they didn't nerf Radiance, they barely nerfed SNY, and Armlet and Midas are still good items. Okay, next up, let's get into mid. Okay, the first hero I want to talk about is OD. I don't think OD is particularly interesting now. Again, it's kind of like Lifestealer, where the numbers were good last patch, and I don't really think this hero is a great pro hero, but I think it's an incredible pub hero just because its scaling is super, super broken. And in terms of the item build, I don't think anything is going to be crazy for OD as well. It's going to be 2 Null Talismans, then generally going to be Treads. After that, you can go for something like Witchblade, you can go Midas if you just want to giga scale, you can go Force Staff. In fact, I'm looking at an XM gameplay right here and an Ori game, and they both go Pike. Right, so it really depends. I personally think that the way to go on this hero is the Obsidian Decimator. This was just buffed from 4% max mana increase to 5%. If you don't know what I'm talking about, when you restore mana, it also increases your max mana capacity. And this is insane because OD's spells deal damage based on his max mana, or the mana differential. His ultimate is based on mana differential between him and the person you're using it on, and his Q is based on his max mana. So you can imagine why this hero scales so damn well. They just buffed it, and he has this insane facet to enable it. Plus your W gives you more max mana. So OD is one of the best scaling heroes in the game. It hits this gross timing with like Witchblade Pike in the mid game, and then in the late game you can go something like Ag's Refresher and just completely blow people up. All right, getting into number 2 is Ember Spirit. Ember Spirit's really cool in this patch for 2 main reasons. So the first one is this new Orb of Corrosion. It works incredibly well with Ember. Embers would already casually buy Blightstone, and now it actually has an upgrade. If you use Band of Elven skin and the new Orb of Frost, you get to build Orb of Corrosion. It is 1,000 gold, which is pretty pricey, but it gives you 8 agility, which is great for Ember Spirit. It is an agility hero, and it gives 3 armor reduction and a 16% slow against ranged heroes, only 6% against melee targets, which I find to be maybe a little low. But yeah, it's just an item that AoE slows because it's with Sleight of Fist, and AoE reduces armor and heals. It actually does so much. It's armor, movement speed, and health regen. So it's kind of everything. It's also lifesteal and spell lifesteal. So this item also scales really, really well. Personally, I think the item build should be like Bottle, Stick, Boots, Blightstone, and then Phase Boots. I think rushing it first is a little cringe, but I think buying it after makes a lot more sense when you starting to want to gank and move around in the side lanes. You want that movement speed slow. and the ability to reduce the effectiveness of Magic Wand in particular with that heal reduction. So yeah, I love this item. And then the other item that's pretty funny, and the reason why I think it's funny, is on this hero, you buy Orb of Blight, Orb of Frost, and Orb of Venom. And that Orb of Venom turns into Mage Slayer, which is great on this hero, this item. It doesn't give int now, which is a little sad for Ember Spirit actually, but it still gives mana regen. It gives 5 HP regen, which is actually quite nice. You didn't need it too much on this hero because you would go back to base, but it gives 30 attack speed, which it kind of did before, but it builds from Gloves of Haste, which is an incredible item. I would say the build up on Mage Slayer is maybe better now, mostly because you get to buy Orb of Venom, which is great with Sleight of Fist. So casual Oov is super good for moving around the map in the early game. You get a casual Gloves of Haste. You can buy casual Cloak, or you could buy Cornucopia, kind of just depending on what you need in the game. So this item's build up is great. It was already kind of good last patch, but I would say it's definitely better now, especially with the addition of Orb of Venom. On top of that, they also buffed his Flame Guard damage, but they did nerf Searing Chain's count. All right, and next up we have Pudge, who maybe should be under the carry list. In fact, we've actually seen it played in the pro scene a couple of times now. So Pudge might be one of the heroes of the patch, which is kind of funny, but let's talk about why. So first off, you have to talk about the facet. If you want to talk about why Pudge is good this patch, you have to talk about the facet. So it's called Rot and Core, and basically when Rot is active, you get bonus damage. If Rot is maxed, you get up to 80% of your attack damage as bonus damage. I mean, that's crazy. It's almost a double damage. It's an amplified damage for your attack damage, which is pretty absurd because Pudge gets a lot of base damage. You have to keep in mind as well, Flesh Heap, when you get kills, you gain strength, which gives you base damage. So this facet is just absurd. It gives you a lot of damage at level 1 and then up to 80%. And so essentially you scale as a right clicker, which is why I kind of dislike the fact that a lot of Pudges are buying Ags. I can kind of get why. It's still a farming tool. It's a good team fight tool. Literally every single Pudge I've had today, and I've had a lot of them, is buying Ags first with like no small item. I don't like this because unless your E is maxed, even when your E is maxed, you still take damage. Ags does so much damage to you that you still take damage even with your E maxed. And so personally, I think the build should be Glimmer first. Glimmer is really, well, Soul Ring, Glimmer. The reason why is you pop the Soul Ring, you use the Glimmer, then you click your E, and the Soul Ring covers the E and the Glimmer completely, or almost completely. And it eats Rot damage. It gives you magic resist, so it lowers Rot damage to yourself, so you can turn on Rot for a super long time, which allows you to keep it on and enable this Rot and Core. It also gives you 40 movement speed, so you can close the gap in teamfights, and Invis, so you can close the gap in teamfights. So I think the build should literally be Phase Boot, Soul Ring, Glimmer. I actually think this is probably the best build on Pudge, which sounds insane, but I genuinely believe it. It's a good farming item. On top of that, the resist makes it then if you want to buy an Axe, you won't kill yourself. So I actually think that's the build. And I also think you can just go like Glimmer Harpoon. I had some guy actually buy Harpoon first, and it kind of makes sense to me. I think, again, the Glimmer first is probably too important. It just enables this hero so well. Yeah, I think you can just scale as a right clicker. You can go Harpoon and then Sanjin Yasha and then like BKB Blink, Abyssal, you know, like, and you, or BKB Blink AC, right? Because you probably need a little bit of attack speed in that build. So it's pretty nuts how much damage Pudge does. And yeah, I'm suggesting him as a mid only because I actually think that the tempo of this hero and the gank potential is pretty absurd. Also, first off, I think if you play a mid, you should skill Rot at level 1 and you should turn it on to amp your damage so you can last it better. You can get up to like, I think 9 damage at level 1. You're going to take a bit of damage, but it's not too bad. At level 2, you take Meat Shield, so then you can use them together. You'll never run out of mana for Meat Shield because it's only 50 mana. And you're going to use that to, again, turn on the Rot. And then at level 2 Rot, you get up to 40% damage. And now you can push away very quickly, and you can last and deny extremely effectively, which is great. And by the time you're level 7, right, you're going to take a point in Hook, of course, just to gank. And then you're going to have max Rot, or 3 points Rot, 2 points Meat Shield, and that's going to give you 60% damage. You're going to have this super early into the game. And so you can hook the large camp and farm fast that way. You can just Rot camps down, you can dismember camps, or you can just roam. I mean, this hero really can do it all mid. I genuinely believe it's just a good core in any of the core roles. But I actually think that the level 7 timing on this hero, or level 8 timing, because you actually really want 2 points in Meat Shield, it gets quite a bit better, is insane on this hero. All right, now let's get into offlaners. The first one, man, there's a lot to talk about with Marcy. So Marcy is really interesting because she has 3 new facets, and all of them are kind of viable. I've seen all of them played. Usually one gets completely ignored. The first one's called Buddy System and makes it where you heal more with your E. The second one is called Pick Me Up, which has terrible win rate, but I actually think it might be the best. Basically, you can alt cast your W to bring your ally with you when you rebound, and it can be used offensively or defensively, which is why it's so good in my opinion. You can save people. So if someone's getting chain stun, you can just pick them up, right, and fling them away, and then they get bonus movement speed. Or Fleeting Fury, which upon landing your W, just anywhere, you gain 3 hits of your ult. And so you get this burst. And it's really good for farming, as you get a pulse and just 3 quick hits. So it's actually really, really nice. All of them are good. Like, genuinely, all of them are good. I think Pick Me Up is the best. And I think the big thing here is that Marcy is going to be really awesome this patch with Pick Me Up and a combo. So what can these combos be? Well, there's a lot of examples. The first one, Magnus. I know we're talking about Offlane, and I'm going to get more into that. But even if it's a Magnus 4, but let's say it's Magnus 1, just so you guys understand the facet. The Pos 5 Marcy can literally jump him onto someone, and he just skewer them. And you could probably start to think, oh, I see. There's probably a lot of combos that are good like this. Okay, let's talk about Offlane Marcy. Clockwork. Yep, that's probably pretty good. Something like Pudge, even. That's probably pretty good. There's a lot of Pos 4s that could be really, really solid. Even something a bit weaker. It could be a ranged hero. Just something like a Dark Willow. It's fine, right? Because of the fact that Bodyguard is now Marcy's default ability. What is Bodyguard if you don't understand it? Well, first off, it gives Marcy bonus base damage and bonus lifesteal. Always. And if you click it on an ally, it gives it to them. Right? That bonus damage and bonus base damage. Now, more importantly, when you click Bodyguard on an ally, if you are next to an enemy and your ally attacks that enemy, you will also attack them. Or if an enemy attacks an ally within that radius, Marcy will attack as well. And so basically, the main way you use it is you jump on someone, you click Bodyguard, and then every time your ally hits, you basically double hit. And it's bonkers damage. It's mainly played with IO, which is also a great combo because you get the tether slow, right? You bring the IO on top and then you keep them in the tether. So, another one I didn't even mention is Tusk, which I think is like beyond insane. Bodyguard with tag team is like, this lane is like crazy. There's only a few heroes that really can live. It's quite funny. But yeah, I'm a big believer in Marcy Core. I think it just scales really, really well. I think the laning stage is good. It doesn't farm the best, but honestly, if you want to farm better, you can take the third facet, the one that gives you strikes. Big fan of this hero. I think it's really underrated as a core, and more people should look into it. All right, next up, we have Dawnbreaker. She has also 3 very good facets. She has 2 new ones. Basically, Star Surge, where you can give bonus attack speed, or Trailblazer, where you can give movement speed in your W's path. I don't have too much more to say about the hero. It didn't really get changed too much other than that, outside of the fact that you shouldn't buy Ags really anymore. From what I've seen, it doesn't give the evasion, so you got to go more of a right-click build, which is going to be Blade Mail Harpoon, which is probably my favorite build, Blade Mail Sanjanyasha. I've seen Orchid SNY. Just any of the right-click builds. You can also go something like Harpoon Deso, and they're all strong. But basically, with the new facet, especially I would say Star Surge is a really, really cool one in my mind, where you get bonus attack speed when you swipe, and you're going to pair that with damage items, mainly Blade Mail and Deso, I would say. And you can just hit nasty hard on this hero. You can also buy that new Orb of Corrosion item, which is quite good on this hero. Okay, and last for the offlaners, if you guys have been a fan of the channel for a while, you'll know that I'm a big fan of Venge offlane, mainly because the Ags timing is just straight up insane. Basically, you buy a Bracer, a Wraith Band, a Wand, a lot of stats, and then you buy Treads, and then you just buy an Ags, right? You just buy the Ags. What Venged Ags does is it makes it a strong illusion of you when you die. So basically, you get to keep playing the game, you get all of your abilities. Now, it's better than ever, but the reason why it's really crazy now is they heavily buffed Retribution. What is Retribution? It makes it where if someone kills Venge, she deals 20% bonus damage to them. And this is obviously insane because of the Ags. I mean, it's also just good in the laning stage, right? If someone kills you in the lane, you just come back to lane and you're just gonna chunk them. It's like just good, honestly. But with the Ags, if they kill you, you're respawning. You will be there. And so you just kill the person who kills you. So it's 10% better now, which is huge. It's literally 2 times as good as it used to be. So I was already a fan of Venge Ags. Now it's better. So I would just give it a shot, guys. I'm a huge fan of this hero. Like at level 10, you get swap damage. At level 15, you get -4 armor cooldown. At level 20, you steal 20% of the enemy's damage and get it on yourself. Level 25, you get 16% bonus damage. Like, I'm such a fan of Venge Core. I think it's so good. Okay, let's get into Pos 4s. First off, we have Mirana. The main thing here is the new Mirana facet. The new Mirana facet is called Starstruck. Basically, your second Starstorm. does full damage. So let's say Starstorm does 150 damage. If you hit them with both of the Starstorms, it will deal 300 damage at level 2. Like, I'm telling you, I played it in a pub. It was actually the only pub I lost today. But I was like stomping the game. It felt so good. The laning stage was crazy. At level 1, I have 150 damage nuke. And this, if you hit them with the second one, it's also a 60% mischance application for 3.5 seconds. I mean, it makes it way harder for people to trade with you. So really good at trading. And the hero just very casually has a 600 damage nuke at max level. I mean, I'm not kidding. It is a 600 damage nuke on the hero closest to you or unit closest to you, which is what, like Lion Finger of Death damage? How much is Finger of Death? That's a good question, actually. It is 600. I mean, this hero unironically has Finger of Death on a 12-second cooldown, if you're like decent at using Leap. I mean, it's pretty crazy. Other than that, the main thing I would like to talk about with Mirana is the fact that you can scale if you want to. I think you can play the hero in 2 different ways. You can buy normal support items, which is what I did in my own game, but I kind of regretted it. I bought like Solar, Glimmer, and that's fine, right? Because, well, I mean, you have Starstorm cooldown at level 10. At level 15, you have Moonlight Shadow gives 20% evasion. You have Moonlight Shadow cooldown at level 20. You have Secret Arrows at 25. Like, you have ways to just be high utility, right? You have a stun, you have a nuke, and you have your team invis. So it makes sense to just be a support. However, you can, if you want, do 2 things. Number 1, at level 15, you can take Leap attack speed. This makes it where you can chunk people, right? Because you have 90 attack speed for 5 seconds. That's a lot. It's actually 190, right? I mean, you click really hard. So what item would you buy to enable this? Probably Diffusal Blade, right? That's going to be the main choice in most games. It also allows you to set up for like mid-range arrows, which is pretty nice, and it gives the hero overall some good stats. So the item build you would go is something along the lines of Diffusal Blade or Maelstrom into a Dragonlance or a BKB if you super need BKB. And that's great, right? So you can play this here in 2 ways. Just be a utility bot, or you can try to scale. Because on top of that, if you manage to get the Tormentor and you get the Shard, you get granted a leap charge, and your attacks crit for 150%. So this hero just has a built-in crit, and when your ulti is active, you get 9, 12, and 15% damage amp for your hero. And so you scale incredibly well. I think some people are going to try to play Mirana as a core, which I don't think is the best. I think it's okay, but I don't think it's the best. I think this hero is just better as a support who can kind of scale due to her chart and her talents. Next up is Zeus. I'm going to go really quick. They just buffed Livewire. Like, for some reason, Zeus is just kind of a better hero. They nerfed his E and they nerfed his Q mana cost, but Thunderbolt is just still a crazy ability as a sup. And his Livewire minimum damage is 4% instead of 2 now, so your ulti is just guaranteed 4% AoE damage, or global damage to all heroes. And if you buy an Aether Lens, your spell does 4% of their current health instead of 2%. So yeah, Aether Lens Zeus is kind of just insane now, really good with Livewire, and the trading is 8% of their current health instead of 7 now in the laning stage. So yeah, Zeus support, very good. Muerta. Now, they actually nerfed Muerta's E Gunslinger at level 1. However, what they did is it now prioritizes heroes. This is great because in teamfights, sometimes you're just going to randomly shoot units and randomly shoot creep waves. Now, Muerta in the late game is really terrifying because even if you're fighting in a creep wave or fighting in your tower against units, you're just going to be popping heroes. So the hero was already just good. It still is just good. It didn't get nerfed. And now it's just better. The numbers are a little bit worse on Gunslinger because they understood that, well, it's a much better ability now that it actually has the proper priority. And that's even the case in the laning stage. I've seen some people skill at level 2, just so when they do proc, they're just double shooting the enemy support or the enemy core, and it's quite effective. In terms of items, I would still recommend going Atos and scaling from there, though. I don't think it's worth skipping the Atos and just trying to scale purely into a right clicker. Although you can if your team has a lot of stuns. I generally think that going Brown Boots into Atos and then trying to scale from there. So how do you scale from there? I think Drums is good, so you have attack speed. I think Treads, then Dragonlance, Shadowblade. Shadowblade is nerfed now, which kind of sucks. But you can also go things like Witchblade or Mage Slayer. Mage Slayer is a good option just so you don't get bursted, right? And this can be really effective. All right, let's get into pause 5. It's the last category here. Very passionate because this is my main role at this current point in time. First off, we have Jakiro. There's a lot to say about Jakiro, and I'm not just saying that. So first off is the facet called Icebreaker. Apparently Twin Terror is also not bad, but I think Icebreaker is where it's at. I mean, it's just kind of crazy. Basically, it makes the ice path last longer, so it's just obnoxious. It just sits on the ground in teamfights. It detonates upon expiring. You can drop it earlier, though. And when you drop it earlier, it deals 225 damage and stuns for 0.5 seconds. So Ice Path just becomes a 275 damage nuke, which is insanely high for a 9-second cooldown AoE spell. And instead of being a 2-second stun, it's 2.5 seconds because you detonate it. And if you're decent at it, you're going to chain stun, right? So yeah, I mean, the hero's best ability is just way better now. And previously, it was pretty awkward. You're like, oh, if I want my best ability Ice Path in the mid game, my best mid game ability and late game ability, I'm going to have to sacrifice damage. Now it is damage. And now he has Liquid Fire in the laning stage. So you have your better trading ability in Liquid Fire because Liquid Frost was a weaker trading ability, but better when you hit level 2. And so people would sacrifice the level 1 trading of not taking Liquid Fire to take Liquid Frost for the level 2 timing and for the mid game with the synergy of Macro Pyre and Dual Breath. But now you just get to use Liquid Fire level 1 to trade, Liquid Fire to push, and then all throughout the mid game, you just get to use Liquid Frost in synergy with Dual Breath and Macro Pyre to destroy people because it amps damage of auto attacks on your spells. All the meanwhile, you can just max Ice Path by level 7 if you want. I did that in my pub, felt great. You can do it by level 8. Personally, I disagree with a lot of the skill builds that's going around. People are maxing the Q, which I personally find to be quite stupid. Q deals up to 400 damage, which seems very impressive, but you have to consider that the movement speed slow scaling isn't the best. The attack speed slow scaling is quite awful, and this ability costs 170 mana at max, where Ice Path stays at a flat 100, and the E is free, and the E amps the Q. So personally, I think that the way to go is to take your E at level 3, so you're going to go 102, Liquid Frost at level 3, to amp the Q again, keep the mana cost on Q down, still have a nice 3 spike in terms of DPS, and then max Ice Path by level 8, scaling your ult. And then you max the E after. And the reason why you max the E after is because for some reason you get both abilities and they scale together. And so you have the option to cast Liquid Frost with Macro Pyre in your Q, which by the way, even level 1 Q does 1 billion damage with maxed E. That's why you don't really have to max it. Liquid Frost also amps Macro Pyre like crazy. And then if you're pushing a building, you just have max Liquid Fire. And then the building has 60 attack speed slow, Glyph is way less effective, and you can genuinely kill buildings, right? Because it's 75% building damage. It's really high. And the best part about all this is that the shard lets you use both with no cooldown. And so if you auto cast them, if you right click on them and then cast one of them, it will just cast them both at the same time. And that's incredible as well because the bonus damage that Liquid Frost provides works on Liquid Fire. So now your Liquid Fire is just burning for an extra 30 per tick, which is what? An extra 120 damage? Every 4 seconds, you just cast this Liquid Fire that just does that much extra damage, right? It's like, I don't know, Jakiro to me is just insane. This hero just does some bonkers amount of damage. It's a pushing hero. It's a nuking hero. It's a better laner. It has this broken facet, which lets you have a better skill build. I think it might be one of the best heroes in the game at the current point in time. Next up is AA. Basically, they made this hero's E a lot better, so its trading is better, and I think that's the main thing. When you make a hero that has really good mid-game, late-game, have a laning stage, kind of like Mirana, or even sort of Jakiro. Jakiro's sort of been known for his laning stage, but now it's just better. But especially in heroes like Mirana or AA, you give them a good laning stage ability, right? It just kind of carries them, and then now you have AA in the mid-game, which is just a great Dota hero, right? Spell Lamp, Wave Clear, and anti-heal, right? It's just good in almost every single game, if not great, in the meta of like a lot of healing, a lot of healing. I guess a bit less with some of the Bloodstone changes, but like not really. And so yeah, I think this hero, now that the E is just a better ability, more damage, and more stacks of exposure, it's just a very impressive hero. Already had a good pub win rate, and now it's even better. And finally, the last hero on the list is Abaddon. There's a lot of heroes I could have put here. It was actually really hard for me to choose. I could have picked something maybe new and interesting, but I wanted to put heroes that I genuinely think are the best. And I think Abaddon is probably the best hero in Dota right now, so I didn't want to just like not put him in the video. I'll give my take on the new hot Abaddon. What can you do to make this hero interesting? So here's the build that I recommend. In the laning stage, nothing crazy, stick, branches, blood grenade, whatever. Standard. After that, you're going to buy mana boots. But the facet you should take is the quickening. They just buffed the quickening. It's now 6-second CDR if an ally dies, or if an enemy dies when next to you. It's also CDR when creeps die next to you, but it's only 0.2 seconds. It still adds up though. Why is this good? Well, when things are dying around you, heroes or units, it lowers the cooldown of a Photic Shield and Miscoil, even your ulti. It's quite nice. However, what people don't realize, I would argue is almost more important, is it works on items. And so it works on mana boots. And I just played a game, I just tested this build, I won the game, it felt incredible, the scaling is great. My mana boots are just really low cooldown because I'm taking fights, even if I die, I generally don't die first, I'm Abaddon, right, with borrowed time. I'm not running in first, I'm a mana boots healing support, I'm letting other people go in, generally. When people are dying around me, my mana boots are just hyper effective. I'm just clicking a lot of mana boots, which is really, really useful for me and for my teammates. After that, I'm pumping out a lot of heals because my Q cooldown is stupid low because of the quickening. I'm putting out more shields, 6-second cooldown. It does cost a lot of mana, but at least you have this mana boots effectiveness. Then the second item I buy, Pavis. Because you have lower CDR abilities, you need a lot of mana. A lot. You do need HP regen somewhere. You need a lot of mana, so I buy Pavis. Pavis is an active item, so during the team fight, I'm getting more Pavises. Then I upgraded Solar. After that, I actually bought Midas, and I actually think you can genuinely rush Midas on pause 5 app. It might seem insane, but this item is just hyper effective in pubs. It's just too good. I actually think that Midas Abaddon might be one of the best Dota strategies in the game for pubs, and maybe even the pro scene. Like, I'm not kidding, because when heroes and allies, when enemies and allies die next to you in a 900 radius, it's quite big, and creeps die, your Midas cooldown goes down by 6 seconds. If 2 heroes die next to you, you just have 12 seconds off of Midas. That's crazy, right? It's crazy. And so you get so much value out of this item. You can sell it later on, and it gives you a lot of levels. This hero can't really farm as a support with QW, but you're just a high level, which allows you to get to level 15, which I actually, in my game, took Curse of the Avernus DPS, and I had max E because I was such a high level. And so all of a sudden, I just have big DPS, and I can push waves and take neutral camps. And so now I'm scaling even harder. And the next item I bought was a Glimmer, low cooldown Glimmer. Then I bought an Axe. Well, I was gonna buy an Axe, didn't get to that. Then I'm just gonna have this nasty timing, right? And so yeah, this hero can scale dummy well with this facet because it works on items. It's also really good on core, but that's for another day. All right, and that's gonna be all for today's video. Damn, that was kind of long. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. I'm gonna be putting out more videos like this. I literally have so many ideas for the patch, so stay tuned. I'm gonna be dumping out videos. And so yeah, that's gonna be all for today's video. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one, and I'm out.
And that's all, but remember, before you leave, come on, before you tune out, subscribe to the Game Leap website, where we are going to help you get to the next rank. If you're stuck, click the link down below, and I'm out. Peace.